Hello, this tiny channel is all I've got right now. Every single subscriber makes a huge difference. Please don't let this fade, subscribe and help keep this dream alive.
My ex-wife left me for a better man. He cheated, she lost everything, and now they're begging for help while I earn over $500,000 a year. I recall the precise moment Lily chose to end our marriage. She sat at the kitchen table, mindlessly browsing through her phone. I had just walked in from work, ready to drop my bag and relax, when she looked up and casually remarked, "Derek, I want a divorce." There was no preparation, no softening of the blow, just a brutal, cruel statement delivered as if she were commenting on the weather. I hesitated for a second, unsure whether I had heard her correctly. "Excuse me?" I inquired, my voice composed despite the tempest boiling within me. "I said, I want a divorce," she repeated, her tone implying that I was too sluggish to understand the first time. I should have been outraged, maybe even devastated. Instead, I was astounded by her chutzpah. Divorce, after everything we had gone through together. And the reason is what struck me the hardest. "I can't keep living like this," she said, crossing her arms. "I need someone who actually works, who contributes. This isn't the life I signed up for." I hadn't realized it. Does not work? I wanted to laugh, but I maintained my cool. For years I'd built my profession from the ground up, earning a six-figure salary and preparing us for a future that most people could only dream about. But Lily didn't bother asking about my work. Never showed any interest in how I made money. I suppose she assumed I was just coasting along, barely getting by. I leaned against the counter and studied her. She seemed so sure of herself, so certain that she was making the correct decision. "All right," I replied calmly, laying my suitcase down. She tilted her head in surprise. "All right?" "Yes, Lily. If you want a divorce, I won't stop you." I caught a glimpse of concern on her face, but it was quickly replaced by the smug, self-assured look I'd gotten accustomed to. "Good, because I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll need to move out by the end of the month. Move out of my house." This woman's nerve was almost funny, but I did not protest. If she wanted me to leave, I would. At least for the time being. "Fair enough," I said, turning to go upstairs. I could feel her gaze on me, waiting for me to scream, beg or argue, but I offered her nothing. In the seclusion of our bedroom, I perched on the edge of the bed and processed the situation. This was not about divorce. This was about power. Lily wanted to feel in control and present me as the failure in our relationship. And perhaps she believed she could persuade me to fight for her, begging for a chance to win her back. But she didn't know me as well as she assumed. The days that followed were a masterclass in passive-aggressive behavior. Lily immediately had a lot to say about everything, even how I folded the clothes and how I spent my evenings. She ridiculed my hobbies, routines, and even how I brewed my coffee. It seemed as if she was attempting to justify her decision by making me the villain. And then there was Ethan, my self-proclaimed best friend. At first I didn't notice how frequently she said his name. "Ethan said this," or "Ethan suggested that." But it was soon evident to her that he was more than simply a buddy. I did not confront her. I wasn't prepared to reveal my hand. Instead, I let her believe she was in control. I led her to believe that I was the passive, clueless husband who couldn't see what was going on right in front of his eyes. One evening, as I was packing a suitcase with a few necessities, Lily leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed and a sneer on her lips. "So, have you figured out where you're going to stay?" she inquired, her tone condescending. I shut the bag and turned to face her. "Don't worry about me, Lily, I'll be fine." She huffed, evidently upset by my cool manner. "Good, because Ethan and I are planning a dinner party here next weekend. It would be awkward if you were still hanging around." "A dinner party? In my house? With my best friend?" The audacity was nearly impressive. "Don't worry," I reassured, shouldering the bag. "I'll be gone long before then." As I moved past her, I noticed her smug look. She believed she had won. She assumed I was slinking away in defeat. But Lily didn't realize she had just handed me the match to light the fuse. If she wanted to burn everything down, I'd let her. And then I'd watch the flames consume both her and Ethan. Sometimes shouting or fighting isn't the greatest way to exact revenge. It's silent. It requires patience. It is allowing the other person to dig their own grave while you silently prepare to bury them in it. And trust me, I was only getting started. Betrayal is a pernicious thing. It makes no grand entrance or display of fireworks. No, It slips in silently, disguised as casual chats and harmless gestures, until one day you wake up to discover that everything you believed was solid has been chipped away. Lily's request for a divorce was the first crack. What followed was a slow breakdown of what I thought I knew about her and Ethan. Yes, Ethan was my best friend, or at least the man who had held that position for many years. I should have seen it coming, but hindsight can be terrible. Initially it was subtle. Lily began invoking Ethan's name more frequently than normal. "Ethan said this," or "Ethan recommended that," she'd casually say during supper. I would nod, not thinking much about it. After all, he was a good friend to both of us. But as the weeks passed, his name came up in our chats more regularly, and with a warmth that made my stomach churn. The first real red flag appeared on a Saturday afternoon. Lily had just returned from one of her meals with Ethan. She was laughing, and her cheeks flushed in a manner I hadn't seen in years. When I inquired what was hilarious, she dismissed me with, "Oh, it's just something Ethan said. You wouldn't get it." I wouldn't get it? When did I start peering in on our marriage from the outside? The solution, I realized, came much earlier than I'd like to admit. I started to notice more. She'd type the texts with a cheeky smirk before hastily locking her phone. She would suddenly dress up more when she had arrangements with Ethan. The explanations that they were only pals or that I was overthinking things. Overthinking. That is the preferred word of any guilty individual attempting to transfer the blame. I still didn't confront her, however. What could have been the point? She'd merely deny it and spin the story to make me appear like the anxious husband who couldn't deal with her having male pals. So I let her believe I was blind, too absorbed with my own affairs to watch hers unraveling. The big blow came when Ethan showed up at my house unexpectedly. I was in the process of packing my life into luggage, as Lily had sweetly requested, when I heard the doorbell. I opened it and was greeted by Ethan's ever-confident grin. He walked in without waiting for an invitation. "Derek, my man," he continued, as if we were still best of friends. "How's it going?" I stared at him, every ounce of patience in my body tested. "What do you want, Ethan?" I inquired, keeping my voice level. He leaned against the wall, carefree and charming. "Just checking in. Lily told me you were moving out, and I thought I'd see if you needed any help." Assistance. From the man who was literally moving into my life. The audacity was nearly astounding. "I've got it handled," I said curtly, returning to my packing. Ethan lingered, and when I looked over, I noticed the wheels churning in his head. He wasn't simply checking in. He was come to make his point and set his claim. "Listen," he began, his voice taking on a tone he undoubtedly felt was genuine. "I know this must be hard for you, but things happen." "Things happen," I repeated, turning to face him directly. I took a hesitant step forward, forcing him to meet my gaze. "Yeah, Ethan. Things do happen, and sometimes they come back to bite you." He faltered for the first time. The arrogant sneer faded, replaced by something almost like uncertainty. I did not wait for him to recover. I returned to my suitcase, clearly dismissing him. "You've always been a cool guy, Derek," he added nervously before going to the door. "No hard feelings, right?" I did not respond. Silence is a strong tool, especially when someone is yearning for a response. Ethan went without saying anything else, and as his car drove away, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. That night, as I slept in the bed that would soon be mine, I relived the events of the previous few months, missed signals, lies, and betrayal. I could have gotten outraged, confronted them both, and demanded answers. But what would this accomplish? They'd already dismissed me as irrelevant, a footnote in their story. What they didn't comprehend was that I wasn't the passive, naive husband they assumed I was. I had been paying attention, making mental notes, and strategizing my future actions. If Lily and Ethan thought they could walk off into the sunset together without consequences, they were in for a shocking awakening. Because betrayal continues even when the truth is revealed. No, that's when the actual game starts. And as far as I was concerned, this was a game I completely expected to win. Divorce. It's a small word for something so disorganized. It indicates closure, a straightforward conclusion to a convoluted story. But when Lily and I walked into that courtroom, I recognized this was not the end. For her, it was a victory lap, a celebration of what she saw as an enhancement. She arrived prepared to impress, in a fitted outfit that exuded refinement and a confident smile that made my stomach churn. Ethan was not far behind her, hovering like a shadow. He did not enter the courtroom, of course, he would not dare. But the very fact that he was present told me everything I needed to know. Lily wasn't simply divorcing me, she proudly displayed her betrayal. "Derek, let's not drag this out," she urged as we sat across from each other at the negotiating table. I don't want this to be harder than it needs to be. It's harder than it should be. The irony was not lost on me. She had already made things difficult by stomping on years of marriage as if it were a worn-out rug that she couldn't wait to replace. I don't plan to, I said calmly, meeting her eyes without flinching. The lawyer outlined the terms. She wanted the house, some furnishings, and a portion of what she believed to be my limited savings. She presumably expected me to resist her, perhaps even plead for a better bargain, but I didn't flinch. I agreed to all terms and signed each form without hesitation. Lily glanced at me, puzzled. You're okay with all this? Why wouldn't I be? I inquired, keeping my voice light. It's just stuff, Lily. You can have it. I caught a glimpse of doubt in her expression, but she soon disguised it with a smug smile. She thought she had won, that she was leaving with everything important. What she didn't realize was that the house was not mine to begin with. It was a rental in my name, which I had used as a workstation when I first began freelancing years ago. And the savings she thought she was taking were only a percentage of my total worth. The true money was hidden away in investments, accounts she had no idea existed. As the documents were signed and the process was over, Lily reclined back in her chair, content. Well, I'm glad we could handle this like adults, she replied, patronizingly. I simply nodded, fighting back the impulse to chuckle. A week later, I packed my possessions and left the house she sorely desired. I gave her everything she asked for: furniture, decor, even pricey kitchen appliances she'd never used. It was not worth the effort to take any of it. Let her have her goodies. Ethan, of course, wasted no time settling in. A neighbor texted me a photo of him unloading boxes into the house, and Lily was standing on the porch with the same smug expression on her face. They probably thought they were creating the ideal little life together, fully unconscious of the storm looming just outside their view. What Lily didn't realize was that I had already been gathering evidence of her affair with Ethan months before the divorce. Photos, text messages, and even a GPS history reveal their frequent lunches at a neighboring hotel. And, while I could have used it to disrupt the divorce process, I chose against it. Why? Because dragging this out in court would simply prolong the drama, and I desired something far more rewarding. I expected karma to take its course, and I wanted front row seats when it did. In the weeks that followed, I adjusted to my new life. My profession continued to prosper, and my salary increased even more as new chances arose. Meanwhile, Lily and Ethan were showing off their love around town, sure they were the picture of happiness. I did not react. I did not call. I did not text. My quiet was deafening, and I knew it was going to wear them down soon. One day I got a message from a mutual buddy. Derek, did you know Lily is throwing a housewarming party? She and Ethan are really leaning into this whole thing. I was just having a laugh. Of course they were. Lily was the type that sought validation from others and thrived on the appearance of accomplishment. She had no idea that her shining new life was constructed on a foundation of falsehoods, and that foundation was already beginning to crack. As I sat in my new apartment that evening, looking out at the city skyline, I couldn't help but feel peaceful. Lily believed she had won, but she had no idea what she had actually lost. And while Ethan was about to realize that taking something that wasn't his comes with a cost, I wasn't in a rush. Revenge, after all, is best served cold, and I was only getting started. I am not sure what Lily expected when she and Ethan agreed to make their relationship official. Perhaps she imagined a picture-perfect life filled with weekend brunches, romantic getaways, and the excitement of a new romance. If so, she was in for a harsh revelation. It did not take long for cracks to appear. Naturally, I maintained silence. There was no reason to intervene. They were excavating their own graves perfectly fine without my assistance. The first indication of problems came from whispers among mutual acquaintances. A friend told me that Lily and Ethan were already straining to sustain their new fantasy life. She's throwing all these dinner parties just to show off, my pal added. But I hear Ethan's been overspending, and they're behind on the bills. I was not surprised. Ethan has always been the type of person who preferred the lifestyle over the work. He enjoyed costly clothing, showy automobiles, and excellent meals, but he lacked the discipline and revenue to support it. Lily clearly didn't realize she had swapped financial stability for a showman with little substance. Then there was the talk about their disagreements. They were not the pair everyone assumed they were. People discussed the shouting battles that could be heard through the walls of their rental home. Yes, rented. Lily's house, which she had been so proud of accepting after the divorce, was no longer there. She'd been forced to sell it since she couldn't afford the upkeep. One day, I received a call from an old neighbor. "Derek, you won't believe this," she exclaimed, barely containing her laughter. "Lily and Ethan had the landlord banging on their door this morning. They're behind on rent." I leaned back in my chair, a smile growing across my face. "Oh, how far behind?" 3 months, she answered. "They're trying to act like it's no big deal, but you can tell they're struggling." It was rather poetic actually. The life they had so proudly built on betrayal was collapsing under the weight of their own conceit. Meanwhile, I concentrated on my personal life. My income had increased dramatically after the divorce, and I was busier than ever with new initiatives and opportunities. I put myself into my work, creating something genuine and long-lasting, while Lily and Ethan struggled with their hollow love. Then, unexpectedly, Lily reached out. She texted me one evening, pretending to be pleasant. "Hello, Derek. I hope you are doing well. I just wanted to check in and see how things were going for you." I glanced at the message for a time, unsure whether to answer. I could sense the underlying desperation in her remarks. She was not checking in. She was fishing. Nonetheless, I chose to play along. "Things are going well, Lily," I said. "Business is growing. How about you?" Her reaction arrived shortly. "Oh, you know, Ethan and I are doing fine. We're making do with a limited budget." I nearly laughed. Managing. That was being generous. The real kicker arrived a week later. I was leaving a client meeting when I noticed Lily waiting outside the building. She looked different, tired, worried, and nowhere near as put together as she once was. "Derek," she said, her voice filled with something I hadn't heard from her in years: uncertainty. I approached her, adopting a neutral attitude. "Lily, what brings you here?" She hesitated and fiddled with the strap of her purse. I wanted to talk. Things have been tough lately, and I thought maybe we could catch up." Catch up? I knew precisely what she wanted, but I wasn't going to make things easy for her. "I'm a little busy," I said. "But I hope things improve for you." She tried a grin, but I could see the fissures underneath. As I went away, I couldn't help but feel satisfied. This was karma at its best. Lily and Ethan thought they were trading up, but they didn't comprehend the cost of their decisions. Now they were trapped in a life they couldn't afford, fighting to maintain appearances as the walls closed in around them. What is the best part? I didn't need to lift a finger. They had done this to themselves, and I was pleased to see from afar while they harvest what they had sowed. Their pristine little world was collapsing, and I hadn't even begun my payback yet. The thing about retribution is that it does not always have to be loud. Sometimes the sweetest successes are those that require no words. Simply tell the truth, and the outcomes will speak for themselves. This is exactly what I did. I was prospering as I watched Lily and Ethan's carefully created fantasy existence dissolve while they were preoccupied with maintaining their beauty. My work had taken off in ways I had not anticipated. Deals were closing left and right, and my annual revenue had risen to more than $533,000. I was not only doing well, I was blossoming. But I kept it secret. There was no need to boast about my success. Lily had already discarded me as the unproductive man, and I was content to let her believe that. Why correct her when her ignorance worked so well in my favor? Instead of focusing on them, I directed all of my attention inward. I updated my flat to a sleek, modern space in the middle of the city, reflecting my new existence. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sophisticated technology, and a stunning perspective of the skyline. It was a home made by my own efforts, free of the anger and treachery that had soiled the previous one. My days were packed with meetings, initiatives, and opportunities that kept me focused and involved. My nights were for me. I started going out more, reconnecting with old acquaintances and meeting new ones. Life felt lighter, more open, and full of possibilities. Of course, Lily was not entirely absent. Every now and then, I'd get a text or hear from common acquaintances about her and Ethan's latest problems: unpaid bills, disputes, and rising debt. Apparently, they attempted to throw a dinner party at the rental, only to have the electricity turned off in the middle of the evening because they had not paid the energy bill. "Derek," a friend said as they talked, "you should have seen it." Lily was mortified. Ethan tried to play it off like it was a mistake, but everyone knew what was really going on. I did not laugh, however. I simply nodded, letting the satisfaction flood over me. This wasn't about schadenfreude or pointing out their failures. It was all about balance. They had tilted the scales with their betrayal, and now life was balancing them out. One day, I ran into Ethan in a coffee shop. He appeared tired, his previously polished appearance replaced by something more unkempt. He didn't notice me at first, so I had a time to observe. He crouched over his laptop, his brow strained, scrolling through what appeared to be job postings. When he finally looked up to see me, his countenance changed. There was no smugness or bravado, only a glimmer of embarrassment. "Derek," he replied, standing awkwardly. "Ethan," I said calmly. "How's it going?" He hesitated, his gaze darting around as if looking for an exit. "Good, just busy with work and all that." "Work, huh?" I asked, lifting an eyebrow. "That's good to hear." He chuckled uneasily, but not with his eyes. "Yeah. Keeping busy. You know how it is." I simply nodded, allowing the silence to stretch between us. He shuffled uneasily before muttered something about needing to return to his chores and quickly excused himself. That interaction revealed everything I needed to know. Ethan was struggling, and Lily's lovely new life was not as idyllic as she had thought. Lily's texts increased in frequency over the course of several weeks. They were vague at first, simply checking in or wishing you well. But I understood what they actually meant. She was testing the waters to see whether I would be willing to help her out. I ignored most of them. The handful I did react to were brief and courteous, leaving her with little to work with. Her texts quickly grew more blunt. "Derek, I understand we've had our disagreements, but I could really use a friend right now." "A friend?" The irony was not lost on me. She had dumped me like yesterday's news, but now that her glossy new life was collapsing, she needed a lifeline. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because I owed her nothing. Lily had made her decisions, and she now lived with them. My silence spoke volumes. While she and Ethan struggled to keep their heads above water, I soared. Opportunities kept coming. My investments were thriving. My life was full with tranquility and purpose. I did not need to confront Lily or Ethan. I didn't have to rant, accuse, or demand apologies. My achievement, my happiness, was my revenge. And the best part? They were fully aware of this. They saw it in every ignored message, every rumor about my success, and every interaction in which I left with my head held high as they hurried to pick up the pieces. It wasn't simply about getting even. It was about showing to myself that I could rise above everything. And I had, quietly, boldly, and totally. Lily and Ethan's downfall did not involve an explosion. It was a slow, crumbling disaster of their own making. I watched it unfold from afar, hearing bits and pieces from common connections and seeing the occasional social media post. Each fresh update provided a clearer picture. They were drowning in their own arrogance, and the water was rising rapidly. At first, Lily attempted to maintain appearances. She continued to share photos of herself and Ethan at fine restaurants, trips that appeared far more luxurious than they were, and snippets of their idyllic life. But the cracks were beginning to appear. Dinners grew less regular, vacations were non-existent, and the grins in their images appeared forced. Then came the murmurs. People began to notice that Lily was no longer as put together as she once was. Her once perfect hair and fancy clothes were being replaced by more affordable alternatives. Ethan, the ever-flashy showman, was now reusing clothing he'd barely worn once. It wasn't long before the rumors evolved into direct updates. One day, a mutual friend called and told me the news. "Derek, you'll love this," she remarked, hardly holding back her laughter. "Lily and Ethan are in some deep trouble. Apparently they're months behind on their rent." I lifted an eyebrow in surprise, but not shock. "Rent? I thought they owned that house." "Not even close," she replied. "They've been renting it this whole time. Word is they're on the verge of being evicted." I gave a tiny chuckle. It was poetic justice, really. Lily had battled so hard to get that house in the divorce, only to discover she couldn't afford to retain it. The financial woes did not end there. Another buddy reported that Ethan was laid off from his work. He was still appearing to have everything under control, but it was evident that he was struggling. Lily, for all of her concerns about me not working, had never worked a real job. Their idyllic life was crumbling under the weight of rising debt and a lack of income. One evening, when I was sipping coffee and scrolling through emails, Lily texted me. "Derek, I really want to talk to you. It's important." I glanced at the message for a long time before typing my response. "Is everything okay?" Her reply came almost immediately. "Not really. Ethan and I are going through a hard stretch, and I was hoping you might help. Just a small loan to see us through." "A loan from me?" I couldn't stop laughing at the irony. She'd abandoned me, mocked me, and flaunted her new relationship with Ethan, and now she wanted my aid. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, "but I'm afraid I can't help. I'm confident you will figure it out." Her response was delayed this time, and I could almost feel her frustration through the screen. "Derek, please, just once. You don't need to make it a huge issue." I did not bother answering, there was nothing left to say. Lily and Ethan had made their bed and were now lying on it. The next piece of news arrived a week later. Lily and Ethan had been officially evicted. The landlord, evidently tired of their excuses, had given them a strict deadline, which they had failed to meet. They were compelled to move into a small, dilapidated apartment on the outskirts of town. "Derek, I wish you could see it," the same mutual acquaintance said on the phone. "It's such a far cry from the life they were pretending to have. Lily's barely holding it together, and Ethan looks like he's aged 10 years. I did not gloat. I did not need to. Their failure was not because of me. It was about the implications of their own decisions. Lily had given up a life of security and support for a fantasy that couldn't endure reality. And Ethan, well, he was getting exactly what he sowed. However, the most telling indicator occurred during another unexpected encounter. I ran into Lily at a grocery shop, with her basket full of store-brand necessities. She looked up, noticed me, and froze. "Derek," she murmured with a trembling voice. "Lily," I responded, keeping my tone calm. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but nothing came out. She appeared defeated. The confident, cocky lady who had requested a divorce and boasted about her affair was nowhere to be found. "I hope you're doing well," I murmured, breaking the stillness. She nodded hurriedly, her gaze slipping away. "You too," she said, wheeling her cart down the aisle. As I watched her walk away, I couldn't help but experience a peculiar spectrum of feelings. Satisfaction, definitely, but also sorrow. Lily made her decisions, and they led her here. This was the life she had battled so hard to build, and now she was locked inside. I did not need to say or do anything to make her regret her actions. Life has already taken care of it for me. And as I walked out of the store that day, I realized that karma doesn't always require a push. It simply takes time. Everything quickly came to a head. I knew what was coming. It was inevitable. People like Lily and Ethan do not handle repercussions well. When their carefully crafted facade of prosperity begins to disintegrate, they lash out, looking for someone to blame, or someone to save them. One morning, while I was wrapping up a client conversation, my phone lit up with a number that I hadn't stored. But I knew it. Lily. For a moment, I pondered letting it ring out, but curiosity got the best of me. I picked up, keeping my voice quiet. "Derek speaking?" Her voice was tight, about to snap. "Derek, we need to talk." I sighed and leaned back in my chair. "About what, Lily?" There was a pause, as if she was searching for the appropriate words. "About everything. About Ethan. About us." I raised an eyebrow, but she couldn't see it. "Us. The nerve of this woman. Lily, there is no us. That ended the day you handed me divorce papers. What's this really about?" She paused again, her voice lowered. "We're struggling, Derek. Things haven't been easy since everything happened. I just thought maybe we could talk. Maybe you could help." Help. There it was. The true reason she called. "Help with what?" I inquired, pretending ignorance. "Financially," she conceded, her tone tinged with forced humility. "Just a loan to get us back on our feet." I couldn't help but laugh. "Lily, you left me because you thought I wasn't good enough, that I didn't work hard enough or make enough money for you. And now you want me to fix the mess you made?" Her voice tightened, and defensiveness crept in. "You don't understand. Ethan and I just hit a rough patch." "A rough patch," I interrupted her. "Lily, you made your choice. You left me for Ethan, thinking he was the better option, and now you want me to clean up after you? Not a chance." She began to complain, but I stopped her. "You wanted to be free, Lily, free of me, free of my lack of ambition, so enjoy that freedom. I have no interest in being your safety net." I hung up before she could reply. The following interaction was not over the phone. It was in person. A week later, Lily arrived at my office unexpectedly. She appeared stressed, her previously polished looks transformed by something far more desperate. "Derek," she exclaimed, walking into my office despite my assistant's attempts to stop her. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair and folded my arms. "You've got 2 minutes. Make it count." She launched into a tirade about how horrible things had been for her and Ethan, how the world had treated them unfairly, and how she was only asking for a simple favor. "Lily," I quipped, "you made your decisions. You left me for Ethan, thinking you were upgrading your life. How's that working out for you? Her face reddened with rage and shame. "Derek, I know I hurt you, but you don't have to be so cruel. I thought you were better than this." "Better than this?" I asked, laughing. "You thought I was a failure, Lily. You thought I wasn't good enough. Now you're here begging me for help because your perfect life isn't so perfect after all. I owe you nothing." Just then, as if the world wanted to emphasize the point, Ethan came in. He must have followed her since his timing was too good to be coincidental. He appeared even worse than Lily, unkempt, agitated, and plainly out of his element. "Derek," he said, attempting to be nonchalant, but his voice was unsteady. "Can we talk man to man?" I rose up and walked around my desk to meet him. "Man to man," I repeated. "You mean the same way you talked to me while sleeping with my wife behind my back? Save it, Ethan." He winced, but pressed on. "Look, we made mistakes, but Lily and I are in a tough spot, and we thought maybe you'd be willing to help us out. Just a loan, something small." I shook my head and laughed again. "Unbelievable. You betrayed me, lied to me, and now you want me to bail you out? The audacity is impressive, I'll give you that." Ethan's cheeks flushed hot, and his hands balled into fists at his sides. "You don't have to be a jerk about it, Derek." I moved closer, my voice low but forceful. "I don't owe you anything, Ethan. You made your bed, now lie in it." Lily reached out and pleaded. "Please, Derek, we're desperate." I turned to her and spoke calmly but coldly. "Desperation doesn't erase betrayal. Lily, you both made your choices, and now you're living with them. This conversation is over." Without saying anything, I moved to the door and opened it, beckoning for them to leave. They stayed there for a moment, shocked, before moving out, their heads lowered. As the door shut behind them, I felt a sense of completion. They felt they could influence or shame me into assisting them, but I was no longer the man they thought they knew. This was not simply about vengeance. This was about standing strong, recognizing my worth, and refusing to let those who had failed me bring me down. And as I sat back at my desk, I couldn't stop smiling. They thought they had broken me. Instead, they'd freed me. The beauty of treachery is that it has the ability to turn on itself. Ethan and Lily felt they could escape the mess they had made by banding together. However, the gaps in their relationship began to widen into full-blown fractures. It was almost lyrical to see them crumble beneath the weight of their own choices. The first indication came from a mutual acquaintance, Naomi, who always seemed to have her ear to the ground. She called me one afternoon, her voice full of gossip. "Derek, you're not going to believe this," she told him. "What now, Naomi?" I responded, amused by her dramatic tone. "It seems Ethan has been, how should I put this, seeing someone else." I laughed, a genuine belly laugh that I hadn't had in a while. "Seeing someone else? Are you serious?" "Dead serious," she remarked. "Apparently Lily caught him texting another woman, some young thing from his new job, if you can believe it." I shake my head. The irony was so thick, I could taste it. Ethan, the man who had betrayed me and Lily, was now betraying her in the same way. Karma did not simply catch up with them, it ran them over. The fallout was fast. Lily, who had always been cocky and confident, was now caught off guard. According to what I heard, she confronted Ethan in a very public setting, screaming at him in the middle of a cafe. He tried to brush it off, Naomi explained, loving every detail. Said it wasn't a big deal, and Lily completely lost it. She threw her coffee at him. I could almost see it. Lily, the same lady who once boasted about leaving me for a better man, is now down to tossing lattes in public. It seemed almost too good to be true. But it did not end there. The woman Ethan had been texting was not a casual affair. He'd met her at his new work, and she was everything Lily wasn't: young, reckless, and uninterested in settling down. Ethan, being the impetuous moron he was, convinced himself that she was worth sacrificing everything for. Lily, of course, did not take the treachery calmly. She sought explanations. I demanded that Ethan clean up the mess he'd created. But Ethan was Ethan, and repairing things was never his strong tea. Instead, he doubled back, blaming Lily for their financial problems and accusing her of being overly demanding. Their disputes were the buzz of the town. Neighbors reported hearing yelling battles late at night. More than one friend described unpleasant occasions in which Lily burst into tears in the middle of a conversation. Ethan eventually moved away, leaving Lily in their filthy flat with no method of paying the rent. She contacted me again during this period, her voice quivering with rage and desperation. "Derek," she began, without bothering with pleasantries. "You were right about Ethan. He's a liar and a cheat, and I can't believe I trusted him." I leaned back in my chair and let her rant. I could have given her sympathy or said something conciliatory, but where was the fun in that? Lily, I replied after she paused for breath. You made your choice. You chose Ethan over me, thinking he was the better man. How's that working out for you? She remained silent for a moment. On the other end of the line, I could hear her breathing heavily. Finally, she murmured, I don't need your lectures, Derek. I need your help. No, I responded firmly. What you need is to learn to live with the consequences of your decisions. She hung up with me after that. According to what I learned later, Ethan did not return. He moved in with his new girlfriend, who soon found he was just as unstable as Lily. Last I heard, he was couch surfing, unable to maintain a job or a relationship. Lily, on the other hand, was left to pick up the pieces of her broken existence. She had no work, no funds, and no one else to turn to. Her family had grown bored of her incessant drama, and even her friends had begun to drift apart. The life she had fought so hard to create with Ethan had crumbled to ash. And I didn't have to move a finger. Karma had completed all of the work for me. There's a certain thrill in knowing that people like Lily and Ethan will eventually destroy themselves. They believe they are cunning, that they can deceive and betray their way to happiness. However, life has a way of humbling them. And while they were fighting, I was thriving. My work was booming, my life was tranquil, and my future seemed brighter than ever. They say that living well is the best form of payback, and by that standard, I had won. The odd thing about hitting rock bottom, when you're the one betrayed, humiliated, and rejected, is that you realize how resilient you truly are. For me, divorce was not the end. This was the beginning. A new start camouflaged as catastrophe. Lily and Ethan had destroyed the bridge behind them, but I was already constructing a better one ahead. Following the divorce, I made a pledge to myself that I would not let their betrayal define me. I'd soar beyond it. Not for retribution, but for my own peace. And this is exactly what I did. The first stage involved investing in myself. I updated my apartment to a beautiful penthouse in the city center. Floor-to-ceiling windows, simple furniture, and a vista that reminded me every day of how far I had come. It wasn't simply a place to live. It was a statement, a representation of my new existence. My formerly solid career began to flourish in unexpected ways. Freed from the stress of Lily's incessant criticisms and Ethan's backstabbing, I refocused on my work. Clients noticed. New contracts flowed in. My annual income has surged, reaching $513,000 and growing. Then there were unexpected chances. My skill and reputation in my profession resulted in lecture engagements, collaborations, and investment opportunities. Every accomplishment seemed like a tiny win, a reminder that I was more than the man Lily had dismissed. Socially, I started rebuilding as well. Old acquaintances who had drifted apart over the years reconnected. New friends entered my life, people who valued me for who I was, rather than what they could get from me. I began attending events, networking with like-minded people, and even taking the odd weekend trip for fun. However, the most major alteration was internal. I learned to value myself in ways I hadn't previously. For years, I had devoted so much work to keeping Lily happy, attempting to match her unreasonable expectations, that I had lost sight of my own worth. Now I was reclaiming it. Therapy was also helpful. I won't pretend I did anything on my own. Talking to someone objective, someone who could help me comprehend the betrayal and ongoing anger, was priceless. My therapist once told me, Derek, you're not responsible for other people's decisions, you're only responsible for how you react to them. Those words became my motto. Then there was my creative side. I had always dabbled in writing and photography, but now I had the time and energy to pursue both properly. I established a blog, which is half personal journal, part professional thoughts, and it soon gathered traction. People connected with my tale of rebuilding, of turning suffering into progress. Every now and then, I heard rumors about Lily and Ethan. Their downhill fall had become something of a cautionary tale in our former circle of acquaintances. The latest reports were always the same: more debt, drama, and remorse. Derek, a mutual acquaintance, once commented over coffee, I don't know how you're so calm about all this. If I were in your shoes, I'd be furious. I shrugged. What's the point? They're living their karma. I don't need to add to it. And it was true. Watching them struggle while I succeeded was not only pleasant, but also liberating. I didn't need to seek vengeance or harbor anger. I was too busy living happily. However, there were times of introspection. Late at night, peering out at the city lights from my penthouse, I'd reflect on everything I'd gone through: betrayal, heartache, and wrath. It had not been simple to move on, but I had done so. In the process, I discovered a side of myself I didn't know existed. Stronger, wiser, more confident. Life continued to throw problems at me, as it always does. But I approached each one with clarity and resilience that I had never experienced before. Losing Lily and Ethan was awful, but in retrospect, it was the best thing that had happened to me. They didn't just leave, they had released me. Every day seemed like progress. I was not simply surviving, I was thriving. And the best part, I did not need anyone's approval to prove it. I had created a life I was proud of, surrounded by people who appreciated me and full of exciting chances. My universe was brighter, larger, and better than anything Lily or Ethan could have dreamed. And as far as I was concerned, the chapter with them had over. This was my story now, and I was writing it just the way I wanted.